Hi, I'm Angel with FleeceFun.com and with Shannon Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really cute mini throw. It's fun, it's fast, and it feels so good made out of Cuddle fabric. The fabric I'm using in this tutorial is this beautiful Cuddle Toile from the Cuddle Classics collection. And I'm also using the Cuddle Damask, again from the Classic Cuddle collection. Love a damask pattern if you haven't noticed.
You will need 2 yards of fabric 1, 2 1/3 yards of fabric 2, rotary cutter, ruler, and mat, and a marking pen.
Alright, once you have all those items, it's time to get started.
Cut off all the salvages of the fabric, approximately 1 inch on either side for 2 inches total on both fabrics, 1 and 2. Cut fabric 1 so it is 72 inches by 48 inches. Fabric 2 so it is 82 inches by 58 inches.
Great, now that you have those pieces cut out, we're going to do some special pinning to make sure that your blanket lines up properly.
Place fabric 2, the larger piece of fabric, right side up on the floor. Then you're going to fold each side in half and mark that half point with a pin. Repeat on all sides. Then place fabric 1 so it is right side down, touching fabric 2. So right sides are touching. Then fold fabric 1 in half and mark each center point like you did with fabric 2. Do this for all 4 sides. Now we're going to pin the 2 pieces of fabric together. So what you're going to do is you're going to line up the center pins on both fabric 1 and fabric 2 and pin it together at that point, and then pin from the center out on all 4 sides. Be sure to use a lot of pins for best results. Note, you will have excess on the corners. That's on purpose.
Perfect. Okay, now it's time to start sewing.
Using a straight stitch with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew from the center out on each of the sides. Be sure to end your seam a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the fabric. Note, I sewed from the center out on each side because of the stretch of the fabric to try and make it as even as possible. Be sure to leave a 4-inch turning gap in one of the sides.
Okay, so now that you've finished sewing the edges, you've noticed you've kind of have these floppy ends, this excess. Well, that's what we're going to use to make the mitered corners, okay? Really easy to do.
Now it's time to make the mitered corners. I'm sure you've noticed the excess you have on each corner of the blanket. We're going to use this to make mitered corners using an old trick. Fold the blanket at one of the corners so the seams touch and the edges of the excess fabric, that's fabric 2, meet. Then take your ruler and marking pen. Line up the ruler so it meets at a 45-degree angle to the edge. Draw a line with your marking pen. This is where you will sew a seam.
Alright, so you're going to take those 2 pieces of fabric, you're going to put them together, and you're going to line up that triangle. Okay, and you're going to draw a line. Now, trust me on this one, don't cut it right now. You do not do that. I can't tell you how bad it would be if you messed up at this point. So please sew it first, then cut off the excess. Trust me, you do not want to make this mistake. So what you're going to do is that line that you just drew, you're going to sew right along it, and then after you've made that line and you've sewn it, you're going to snip off the excess.
You might even want to flip it right side out to make sure that it looks correct. Once you're happy with the seam, cut off the excess. Repeat the step for the other 3 corners.
Alright, so you're going to turn it right side out.
Now it's time to finish up the blanket. Flip right side out using that turning gap that you left open. taking care to get the corners completely turned out, so take your time and make sure they're nice and pointed. Then lay the blanket flat, taking care to make sure that it is laying perfectly flat and all of the borders are straight.
Okay, so now it's kind of baggy and kind of this blob, and we want it to lay nicely. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to lay it all flat, and you're going to pin it so it'll lay properly. I recommend doing this on a big flat surface. Don't just do it in your lap because you want it to line up properly. So find a piece of carpet, lay it out wide on the floor, and then pin it down.
Pin close the turning gap. Then pin down all the fabric between the border and fabric 1. Okay, so you're going to just pin right along those seams.
All right, now you're going to use a serpentine stitch to sew along the edge of where those two pieces of fabric meet. If you want information on how to use a serpentine stitch, especially on cuddle fabric, there's another tutorial right here that you can follow to learn about it.
To secure the blanket and sew the gap shut, we're going to use a serpentine stitch all the way around the blanket. You can use a serpentine stitch or any decorative stitch that you prefer. You're going to sew along that seam between fabric 1 and fabric 2. Once you've done that all the way around the blanket, trim your threads and you're finished.
Now, if you really want, you can tack it down in a few other points on it, but I don't think it's necessary. It'll stay pretty stable as it is. And it's a perfect mini throw. It's great for little kids. Adults like it as lap blankets. And it's made out of cuddle fabric, so it feels wonderful, right? If you like this tutorial, I have several others on my website, fleecefun.com, that I know you'll love. All my patterns and tutorials are free. Also, be sure to check out Fleece Fun on Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. Have a great day. Remember, velvet is pretentious. Fleece is fun.